Hello, Howard.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good to see you. And Rick here with us too, right?
Hello.
Rick Fain?
Yep,
I believe so. Yeah, Rick,
That's great.
he's on.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Is Tom Grinslade with us?
Yes.
Thank
I
you,
believe
Tom.
Steve is as well.
Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Fishers Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for February 24th, 2021. I'd ask you to please rise so we can state our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we're going to move into election of officers, appointments, and designations. Kay, would you like to call the roll before we do that, or would you like to move into elections?
I will call the roll first. Yes. So, Mr. Ferrucci.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Kay. I had an unstable
That's all right.
connection.
We're just doing the roll call. I've got
Okay.
you here.
Thank you.
Mr. Fain
Here.
and Mr. Grinslade,
Here.
all
Great.
present.
We have a quorum for tonight's meeting. The first order of business will be election of officers, appointments, and designations, with the election of a president being first. Do we have any motions for folks to be president?
Yes, we do. This is Howard Stevenson. I would like to make a motion that we have Steve Perucci as our president of the Fishers Board of Zoning Appeals.
And I'd like to second that.
All in favor? Secretary, I'm sorry, please call the roll.
Mr. Ferrucci.
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson
Yes.
and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you for your confidence in me. I appreciate
Hopefully
it.
you can hear me. Yeah, my connection is unstable. Hopefully, I did vote yes.
We can hear you.
I have it. Thank you, Howard.
One thing, folks, if you're not speaking, it may be better for you to mute your microphone so we don't get any feedback. Okay. Next up would be the election of a vice president, and I would like to move that Howard Stevenson be our vice president.
I'll second that.
Okay?
All right, Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
thank you, and Mr. Fain. I couldn't hear Mr. Fain.
Rick, you may have to
Yes.
unmute.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes, yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Motion passes. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Howard.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, next up would be the appointment of secretaries. Excuse me. And that would be, we're going to appoint Tony Bagato, Megan Schaefer, Ross Hillary, am I saying that right? Thank you. Andrew McGee, and Jesse Boschel. Okay, is that something we actually vote on?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I I believe so, yes.
Okay. Well, I
can't
move,
mention
I
that,
so
but
move.
vote yes.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
If you need a second,
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and call a roll.
So I will. Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
loud and clear. Thank you. Mr. Fain,
Yes.
thank
Motion.
you.
That motion passes. Those folks are
Appointed.
appointed. Next up, the appointment of recording secretary. And I would move that Kay Prang be our recording secretary. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next up, designation of Board of Zoning Appeals Legal Counsel. I move that Krieg DeVault be our legal counsel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And who was the second, please?
I was. Rick?
And that's Rick. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passes.
you.
And finally, the designation of Board of Zoning Appeals legal publications. I would move that the Noblesville Times and the Current be those legal publications. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. And Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience on that.
Next up, approval of our previous minutes from January 27th of 2021. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to move into the public hearing. The first case is case VA-21-1, First Merchants Bank ATM. It's consideration of a variance of use and development standards from the city's Unified Development Ordinance to allow for a standalone bank ATM and associated site improvements at 13808 East 96th Street, generally located on the northeast corner of 96th and Oleo Road. Is the petitioner Scott Clark here, please?
Scott is not with us, I don't believe. This is Jacob Gillette. I'm with Gillette General Contractors here to represent First Merchants Bank.
Great, thank you, Jacob. Could you please state your address?
My address is 2515 Bloyd Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46218.
And go ahead with your petition, Jacob.
All right. Well, I understand that the current standard does not allow for an accessory structure to be a standalone without a primary structure. I'm looking for board approval to allow the First Merchants Bank ATM kiosk to be constructed with the following reasons. One, with the pandemic, bank customers are now doing more online banking to eliminate the face-to-face interaction, and the remote kiosks allows for this. Two, the remote kiosk banking, it has become more and more popular in the industry, and I think we'll be seeing more of this in the area. And three, this is a fully functioning deposit withdrawal ATM, and since they have closed one of their other banking locations in the Fishers area, they're trying to serve their customer base. And so that's why I'm hoping that for a board approval at this location.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the hearing to the public for any comments from the public. Anyone on the line from the public to comment on case VA-21-1? Hearing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and ask staff to present, please.
Hi, good evening. Megan Schaefer with the Fishers Planning and Zoning Department. So the item before you, as mentioned, is for a standalone ATM kiosk. So First Merchants Bank is requesting both a use variance and a development standards variance to allow for this development. So currently the property, which is located on the corner of Oleo and 96th Street, this parcel here just set back behind the gas station, is a part of a PUD zoning ordinance, which does allow for uses in the C1, C2, and C3 zoning districts. So it does permit bank ATMs, but only as an accessory use to a financial or banking institution. So in this case, First Merchants Bank is requesting a use variance to allow a standalone ATM by itself without a financial or banking institution on the property. Due to the nature of the proposed ATM, the petitioner is also seeking a development standards variance from the development standards such as pedestrian accessibility, architectural requirements, signage, and off-street parking requirements. And that's really just due to the nature, again, of it being a drive-up, walk-up ATM. And for architectural standards, it's just the ATM kiosk, so there's not really architectural standards that we can apply to this situation. I will say that they are proposing a sidewalk connection that'll connect to the existing sidewalk here of the gas station and also the existing sidewalk along Geist Crossing Drive. That was an addition that was not included in your packet with the agenda, so that is an additional change. We have not received any comments from the public at this time, and we do recommend approval just on the condition that the BZA approval letter be recorded and just to solidify the requirement that the pedestrian sidewalk connection be required along that south access drive here.
Thank you, Megan. Staff, or excuse me, board, do you have questions of petitioner or staff, please?
I have one question, I guess. This is going to be a pedestrian, also ATM. What are we doing about lighting?
There are two.
Acre with an ATM sitting in the middle of it.
There are two pole lights proposed.
Yeah, so there's two light poles that will be installed along with this ATM kiosk, and those will match the existing light poles within this area. So the PUD does require decorative light poles, and so they're going to match the ones that have been provided, where that gas station is. And then there's also an office development here just to the east that they'll be matching. And that was really a request by staff also for safety reasons.
Yes, I just want to know, if people are walking up to the ATM at 1 o'clock in the morning, I want it to be well lit.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Other questions from the board? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
This is Howard. I make a motion that we approve case number VA-21-1 for approval of their variance of use and development standards.
I'll
Friendly
second
amendment.
that.
I'm sorry. I would ask that friendly amendment that the recording of the BZA approval letter containing any terms and conditions agreed upon be included, and that the pedestrian sidewalk connection be required. I guess that would be part of the plans as presented.
Yes, Steve, I'll add that to my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you. Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Next agenda item is case VA 21-2. It's McEldowney variance. Jason and Jill McEldowney are seeking consideration of development standards variance from Chapter 3, Section 3.2.5, R4 residential, 5, other, 5B, impervious area of lot from 40 to 45% to construct an outdoor patio and in-ground pool where the common address is 10461 Creek Tree Lane, and the property is zoned R4 residential. Mr. and Mrs. McEldowney, would you like to proceed, please?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jason McEldowney. This is my wife, Jill. Appreciate everyone's time tonight to hear our petition. Really appreciate Ross Hillary, who's been very, very helpful to walk us through this whole process. It's been an educational experience for us as homeowners. We've never had to go through this before. So yeah, we're, I guess you could say I finally caved. My wife's been trying to get me to put a pool in for a while now, and we've decided to pull the trigger on it. And our lot is relatively small. I mean, it's very average, I guess, for our neighborhood. But as far as a pool, and it's not a large pool, it's a kind of a medium-sized pool. But we wanted to have a patio that would kind of, in addition to the decking, and we kind of explored some options. We were given some advice from some contractors that maybe we could do kind of a pervious surface like a deck or a permeable pavers. But I guess from talking with Ross, we got some bad advice from those contractors because the code, the local code does not treat those as pervious surfaces. So we decided to go ahead with a concrete patio since we couldn't really get around it using a deck or permeable pavers. So yeah, we're petitioning that we go from 40% to 45% on the coverage on our lot. That you can see the site plan that's up there on the screen. We tried to reduce it if we could, but we couldn't get it to where it would make sense for us to reduce it to get it below the 40%. It would have been, yeah. So we're just trying to do the right thing. I didn't want to run into any issues, with the city down the road. So we decided to go ahead and file for the petition. And anyway, I appreciate your time, like I said, and open to any questions you guys might have.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. McEldowney. At this time, I'd like the staff to present.
Sure, thank you. Again, for the record, Ross Hillary, City of Fishers, planning staff here. Before you tonight, you do have VA 21-2, the McEldowney variance, again located at 10461 Creek Tree Lane here in Fishers. Again, overview, the petitioners, which you have just met, are Jason and Jill. They're seeking the development standard variance, again from section 3.2.5 R4 district impervious area. The request tonight is from an increase from 40%, which is what is allowed, to 45%. again, to construct an outdoor patio and in-ground pool. Just for additional information, like I said, it is located at 10461 Creek Tree Lane. It is 0.31 acres and is zoned R4 residential. Before you tonight, which you've seen already, this is the site plan for the development. You'll see here, there is the driveway located off Creek Tree, a 3 Seasons room that is existing, and then the pool, which again, the pool does not count towards impervious surface. It's the addition of the concrete patio decking that is putting that number over. Here's another site plan. The entire development, or excuse me, the entire improvements are also outside of any easements. And they also provided a 3-year rendering to show what the improvements will look like moving forward. We did receive one public comment for this after the staff report was written. Staff responded, there was no concerns. It was a neighbor asking about the timing and how long the project would take. And those are all things that fall under city ordinance. So it's not of concern for the BZA tonight. That was provided to you. Again, the petitioners did publish a public notice in the current and Fishers and the current and Guys, which is what we require. They did also do a mailing with the required Hamilton County adjoiners list, so their neighbors were aware of this as well. A public notice also from staff was placed on their property. Again, staff is supportive of the variance tonight. We don't believe it'll have any injustice to the public health, safety, or general welfare of the neighborhood. This understanding will not decrease the value or change the use of the property, but only increase the value. Staff does recommend approval, approving the variance as presented and granting that impervious surface maximum 45% with the condition similar to the case you already heard that the BZA approval is recorded, and staff will assist the petitioner on that.
Great. Members of the board, any questions for either petitioner or Ross, please? Hearing no questions, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number VA-21-2 as presented with the BZA letter being recorded.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Right. Kay, could you call the roll?
All right. Yes. Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, McEldownies. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
The next order is business is case number VA-21-3, 13625 Kingston Drive. Consideration of a development standard variance from section 3.2.3B.5B of R2 residential development standards to allow for an increase in maximum impervious surface from 35 to approximately 48% to construct a pool and associated decking. Our petitioner is Matthew Harms with, is it Modish Pools, Matthew? Am I saying that right?
Matthew's
Matthew?
muted.
You're muted, Matthew.
It's been a minute since I've used Teams. Yeah, Matt Harms from Modish Pools here in behalf of Jerry and Megan Ewing at the address that was listed on the petition.
Very good. Would you go ahead and present for us?
Sure. I don't know if you want me to screen share or if Andrew's going to do that when it's his portion, but basically we've got a third of an acre lot with the house and driveway that is currently there before we even do any improvements, already at 35.8%, at least according to our calculations. So it doesn't really leave us room to do much of anything in the way of adding into the backyard. And so that would be, I suppose, point number one is that it's a backyard that's plenty large in size. I think that the the coverage of the lot is due in large part to the side load garage, and similarly to the last plan that you saw on the screen, it's not that the backyard is lacking space that would make it look like a concrete jungle or some of those things that we would be concerned about, but rather just a matter of the amount of space that has already been utilized in driveway, sidewalk, and house. And so we're asking for the board to approve the increase in coverage in order to allow for adequate pool decking around the pool, as well as space for the potential of a outdoor pool house and or fire pit area for the family to gather. Additionally, in working with Sundown Gardens Landscaping on this project, we think that there's probably already some possible drainage improvements that could and should be made, and the work that we intend to do should help the way that the water is containing in the backyard currently. So those are the main points for our petition, and we ask that the board would consider them.
Thank you, Matthew. Board, or excuse me, staff, could you present, please?
Yeah, as the petitioner stated, this is in the Springs of Cambridge area, so we've had a lot of prior variances that were pretty much like this. This one is a couple houses removed from the reservoir itself, but it would drain. There is actually drain in the rear yard, kind of in between the property lines, that any runoff would drain into directly and then go to Geist. Kind of as shown, you can see that the pool, again, doesn't count towards impervious surface, but since their house and driveway is already at that limit, any patio of any size would have exceeded the 35% limit. So we did calculate it, and they are at about 48%. So we are requesting to exceed the 35% maximum and go up to 48%. We did do the public noticing as required by the state law. We didn't receive any comments on this from any of the neighbors or anyone else. And we did place a public notice sign so that it was well. We do approve of this variance. Again, we don't think it's going to be injurious to public health, safety, or the general welfare. We do recommend approval of the 48% with the condition that the any variance approval is recorded on the property.
Thank you. Members of the board, any questions? Hearing no questions, do we have any motion, please?
I believe there's a public hearing on this item that we haven't had.
Rodney, I was told that the public is no longer being invited to call in, and that we're considering public comments presented by the staff. Is that right?
Yeah, what you should do, if there's public here at the city hall, you should at least open the public hearing just in case there's someone here.
Okay.
I can tell you sitting here, there is not, but you should at least open it, and then recognizing no one else is, or there's actually no one here, then close it right away. But on the record, you'll need to actually open and close it.
Okay, I appreciate that. This is a whole new world with Teams meetings, so thank you for your patience and understanding. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic, please?
And again,
Hearing none.
Here, so you can go ahead and close.
Okay, hearing none, and there's no one at City Hall, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for any questions from members of the board. No questions? Do we have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion for approval on case number VA-21-3, and that the approval letter be, how do you say that, attached to the property?
Recorded.
Recorded to the property, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, would you like to call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Ferrucci,
Yes.
Mr. Grinslade,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Fain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. We have no other cases. Any old business? New business?
None.
Staff communication? Okay.
Nothing.
Do you have a
further.
motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.